Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my brothers, my sisters in Islam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast Story with Wa'il Ibrahim. Now, my brothers, my sisters in Islam who are watching, listening everywhere, this is a very dear and very special episode to my heart. And you will know why in a little while, but let me welcome my friend, my dear guest, Brother Ibrahim. Ahlan wa sahlan, welcome.
Ahlan fiqh.
How's it going?
Alhamdulillah, Sheikh.
You happy?
Alhamdulillah.
Are you enjoying Wollongong?
Of course, I've lived here most of my life.
Wallahi.
Yeah.
I felt like it's the twin sister or twin brother of Perth. Like
Yeah.
we don't know where to go, like there are no places to go to.
Sheikh, I think I didn't discover the Muslim community in this area till about 4 or 5 years ago.
Wallah.
But I've lived here my entire life.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
Beautiful community. Allah tabarakallah. If you guys come by sometimes, visit Masjid As-Salam, one of the best masjids I have been to. The community is lovely, mashallah tabarakallah. And let me introduce my dear brother a little bit better, inshallah. So, Brother Ibrahim is a person who has been struggling for the past many years with something really monstrous. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And that thing have affected your life for most of the time. And finally, you reach out to seek help.
Mm-hmm.
And alhamdulillah, it's been going, Allahu Akbar, brilliantly well.
Alhamdulillah.
But I don't want to bore my listeners and my viewers about what's your background and how long have you been into this misery. I wanted to speak straight and to the point. The monster that we're talking about, my brothers and sisters in Islam, probably now you've guessed it, is pornography addiction. Number one, I wanted to thank you so much, first of all, for your bravery to actually accept to come on cameras and to accept and to approve the publishing of this episode and this video. And by the way, as we are talking now, my brothers and sisters in Islam, we don't know when this episode is going to be released. We're just recording it. The timing, Allahu Akbar, Allahu A'lam, God alone knows
as soon as
when.
possible, Sheikh.
But as soon as you see it online, it means Brother Ibrahim had given me the thumbs up to publish and to for the benefit of others, inshallah. But it's about pornography addiction. I wanted to know, first of all, Brother Ibrahim, what are the areas in particular in your life that have been impacted mostly by this evil? Bismillah.
Bismillah. I think over time it was ability to focus was a big one. And then it kind of just got worse and worse where I didn't want to pray, I didn't want to go out, I didn't want to see anyone. I would plan a weekend or to do things or to go to the masjid or whatever it is, and then that night or the night before something would happen or I'd be watching this thing and then I just feel just dead, basically.
You've lost motivation.
Lost motivation, yeah. Before I reached out to you, Sheikh, it was getting to the point where I just, everything started to be like, I'm not doing this properly because of this addiction, or it's affecting this part of my life with addiction, or my wanting to lose weight, or I'm looking at getting married, inshallah, but like it's just all of these things that just kept compiling and beating up.
Stumbling block now in front of you. Whatever you want to achieve, you feel like this thing is going to prevent you from achieving.
It's like this immovable wall. Because brick walls, you keep hitting them enough, they'll usually come down, alhamdulillah. But with this, it just...
And just for the sake of the audience to understand your condition, and how many years were you in that cycle? And how does it feel to be in that endless cycle of relapses after relapses?
I think initially it was when I was about 10, 11 is when I first saw something. And then around 12 is when it became frequent.
So for those who are shocked at the age, this is, by the way, a very common stat. Like in Australia alone, 1 in 10 porn users on the internet is under the age of 10, believe it or not. That's why we always tell parents to be mindful of your children's applications, your children's usage of internet, because before you know it, they're probably already addicted to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think initially, because I'm a revert to Islam, I it didn't really.
He's by the way the first Palestinian Arab revert that I have ever seen in my life. This guy.
Alhamdulillah. No, the the first few years it was kind of normal. I was caught a couple times when I was younger, which was very shameful and very disappointing. But it
By
just
family
by
by family
family
members. Yeah.
members,
Okay.
yeah. But it just made me uh, more able to hide the fact that I was doing it, and I became even more sneaky and more aware of where I was and what I was doing and where people were, instead of actually getting rid of the addiction,
Mm.
or at least the beginning stages of it. Um, but when I reverted, Alhamdulillah, and I uh, was going through it, that's when it started to become a much bigger problem.
Oh.
And then, yeah, it took about from 2019, Alhamdulillah, till about now, that, or a bit before that, I was just
You
like, this
started
is,
fighting. Yeah.
I started fighting it, and I'm like, it's just not,
It wasn't working.
in
Subhan.
hindsight, yeah, I just
And this is
made
what
those
I want you.
connections, and
This is what I want you really to explain a little bit to our viewers.
Mhm.
Like how difficult it is to fight this addiction on your own. Like
Sheikh.
just you know it's wrong, you know it's haram, you know it's compulsive, but you keep on telling or convincing yourself that I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it maybe from tomorrow, next week,
Yeah,
Ramadan, and
no, of
so on.
course. I've tried everything, Sheikh. I tried with other people. I tried putting my phone away in a different room. Yani I've sometimes lasted a week without doing anything, but it's like almost like a primal instinct that attaches with this addiction, and I just, all of a sudden I blink and something's happened.
Mm.
So then I go through the cycle of shame and disappointment, and I've lasted a week, and why not, and what's happening, and you just can't do it by yourself. I've tried it more than at times than I can count, and I've had the motivation, and I've built up the courage, and I've put blockers on my phone and everything, and then not even, I don't think I lasted more than 14 days by myself
Every relapse,
every time.
and then again,
And
it take you
either
from
I would
day
try
one.
again, or I would just go back to normal and just forget about it, like I give up, and then I like it once again, it comes around, and I
Mm.
want to get out of this thing, and I'm connecting myself to the masjid more, and with new friends, and introducing myself, and then all of a sudden this happens, and I just
Mm.
disappear again, and I
And
recede
have you
into it.
ever shared that with anyone?
With friends that weren't Muslim, it's an open conversation.
Mm.
I don't have many of those friends anymore because it's normal to them, and I wanted to distance myself from those people, and find better friends, alhamdulillah. But yeah, I'd never shared it with my parents, or friends, or anyone from the masjid, or my mashayikh, and no one really.
Because really the Muslim community don't
It,
want to talk about it anyway.
it's very hard. You and a couple of other sheikh are the only people that like actually talk about, because it's such a taboo topic, and even lectures and stuff online that I watch and I listen to, and especially like ones about marriage, or they're going into the topic of marriage or responsibilities and stuff, they'll gloss over it.
Mm.
There'll be like a little thing of like, don't watch this, or don't watch these images or these videos online, because it's haram
It's
and
haram.
whatnot. And I'm like,
But what do we
I
do?
understand that, yani, but like,
And
what
that
do you
reminds
do?
me, wallahi, that reminds me. We were just narrating the story of the Prophet ﷺ when a man came to him and he told
Hmm.
him, Ya Rasulullah, allow me to commit adultery, right?
Yep.
We were narrating this story in the masjid a while ago today. And we mentioned that this man who asked that question to the Prophet ﷺ, he knew it was haram.
Of course.
He knew it was wrong. He was one of the best, one of the companions.
Yeah.
So he was not asking the Prophet ﷺ whether it's halal or haram. And the Prophet ﷺ also realized that, and that's why he did not mention the word haram in the whole conversation, but rather he facilitate a way for the man to get out of that maze. And this is what we need to discuss in our
Yeah.
masajid, in our centers.
It's a difficult one, because a lot of people, and even myself doing this video, or talking about it to even you by ourselves,
It took me a year to convince him.
it's yeah, I don't want to, it's not showing off. And if I my ideal situation, I would rather fix my problem with you, Sheikh, collapse it up into a box, bury it, and never
Run away.
uncover it again. And
Allah.
yeah,
So
you don't.
what's your intention behind coming on cameras now? Like when I invited you to this, you were initially, of course, reluctant, but then later on you said, let's do it. So what was the main
Sheikh,
intention behind this?
as I mentioned before, there's no one talking about it, and I'm because also like as a revert, I'm more open to this conversation initially because it's just kind of normal now in day to day in Western cultures especially. So what about brothers who have lived their whole life or sisters who've lived their whole life Muslim, and it's a taboo topic, and it's just very even anything to do with marriage or boy-girl relationships is very not talked about and not discussed. How do you help these people? And you mentioned a stat from a recent study that said 1 in 8 children have interacted or watched this
Or already confessed that they're addicted.
already confessed, and that's just the ones who have confessed.
Yeah, and 8 years old, like, that
Yeah,
means that how could such a boy or a girl in such a tender age realize
course.
actually that they need help as
Yeah.
a result of these
And
imagery?
I've gone through it, and I'll always be an addict. I will always have systems in place to make sure I never slip back into this. But I don't want to have my future, uh, what's it called, future children or even my siblings today to get that addicted or be hardwired into this addiction. So I'm
So is it part of your
expressing
mission
my
now?
story. Yeah, I want to express my story to go, there are people out here who have gone through this, are going through this. Maybe my story resonates with brothers and sisters and you can help, but the last thing I want to do is start waving a flag saying, yeah, well, I'm Muslim, I can, this is halal and boasting. It's,
A'udhu Billah.
A'udhu Billah,
So,
yeah.
basically, Brother Ibrahim, just to clarify something for our audience, and that is when you share your story of the past, of something sinful or haram, with the intention of warning others, with the intention of reaching out to people who might be doing the same thing or struggling with the same sinful activities, this is actually very highly encouraged. And we have example of Ja'far ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu when he migrated from Mecca to Abyssinia, and he conversed with the An-Najashi, the king. And An-Najashi asked him, what did your Prophet teach you? That was the question. Then Ja'far ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu started telling An-Najashi what sins the Arabs back then before Muhammad they used to commit.
Yeah.
So he said, we were people who used to eat this and worship idols and commit even zina, eat the swine, drink the blood. So he listed actually sinful activities that they used to commit. Then Muhammad ﷺ was sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he started telling An-Najashi, the king, what teachings Muhammad ﷺ brought to their lives. And as a result, they have changed and became better. So to use your story of the past, not in a boastful manner, meaning I'm not proud of what I've done. There is no issue whatsoever. The moment you start proudly exposing yourself, this is what the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, prohibited us. Habibi, the question that I have on mind now is that are you planning to take this to the next level later on? Like to reach out to people and to talk about
Inshallah, Sheikh.
this problem? Because you have studied
course.
also a lot of the
Yeah,
strategies and so on.
I'm currently studying to become a counselor. I do want to help others because a big thing for myself, it's not necessary, but when a speaker or a brother or someone's giving advice, but they also say they've gone through it themselves, or my story or their story relates to me and my personal experience, it automatically gives this comfort to
relatable.
people. It becomes relatable, and there's this space of comfort that you can kind of come and talk to that person easier because they know what's happened.
True. I interviewed a brother before, Hasif. He's part of the Aware Academy now. He's a coach, mashallah, tabarakallah. And subhanAllah, his video went viral at one point, and many people would contact me, tell me, can I have Brother Hasif number? And mashallah, he's been helping a lot of people as well in that space. So we need a lot of people. One person cannot do much, subhanAllah.
Of course.
Okay. One thing before we tell our audience the strategies that you have applied that helped you to quit this evil, alhamdulillah, and become better. what is your advice first to parents who have kids and perhaps those kids already on their cell phones, on their iPads, computers? What's the ultimate, most primary advice you give to parents? Because you couldn't share
Of course.
your
Of course.
pain with your parents.
Of
So
course.
how
I
can
think
other children reach out to their parents, and how can parents advise or control
I think
this mess?
if you are a parent and you are concerned, or you know your kid takes their device, their phone, their tablet, their laptop, or they have it in their bedroom, start the conversation with them. That's probably a good one. Talk to them about it. Don't get angry. When I got caught when I was younger, the conversation was once again like, don't do this and it's haram and whatnot, and it didn't help. So be understanding, help them, try and say like there's things we can do and whatnot. And one level beyond that, if they haven't accessed these things yet, or whatnot,
Or if the parents called the children?
or if the parents caught their children, first, don't if they don't have a phone, don't give them a phone. They don't
Oh,
need
that's
one,
your
Sheikh.
advice now.
They don't need one.
So
If they have a phone
what
now,
age do you
Sheikh,
advise?
there's a documentary I watched about social media and the people who used to work at these companies at Google and Facebook and Instagram, and they talk about the algorithms and how they actually are built. And
Recognize children's
they
face.
recognize children's faces. They even have scientists studying color and how it reacts with the brain, just to make sure everything's so good that you are
To
addicted
hook
to
children
hook
to
you
these
in.
technology. Yeah.
And at the very end of this documentary, there was a question asked, and all these people were asking, "Do your children have the phones or device? Are they allowed on these social media apps?" And they all said no, absolutely not. So the people building them and the CEOs of these companies do not allow their kids anywhere near this stuff.
Subhanallah.
So I think 16 to 18 is probably when they can have a personal phone or
By the way,
a proper phone.
I have come across my own students who didn't have any cell phone during the year 12 on year 12 yani, on the graduation day of year 12. Their father brought a cell
A
phone. He
cell
said,
phone for them.
now congratulations, you have one. And
Alhamdulillah.
subhanallah, this girl, this in particular, this student of mine, I can't mention her name now because I didn't ask her for her permission, but I asked her before, like, how did you manage to live all these years, seeing your classmates and maybe cousins or relatives and people on the streets always on cell phones? She said it becomes the norm. My parents made this the norm, and once that becomes my norm, everything becomes the exception.
Of course.
Allahu Akbar.
And even I think the biggest one is blanket rule for even the parents as well. So just to help the kids along with it, no cell phones in bedrooms. And if
Absolutely.
the
No
kid
internet
goes,
at all.
or
Whatever
even
device.
cut pull the internet. That's
Okay.
another one. Pull the internet if they want their phone. That's fine. Here you go. But if they've got mobile data now and whatnot,
Yeah.
especially in Western countries, no phone allowed.
And I always say that it's not about distrusting your children,
Of course not.
but we don't trust shaitan.
Of course.
And الشيطان مع الواحد وهو من الاثنين أبعد. Shaitan is always with the individual. And he's farther away from the two. So if you leave your child with a cell phone, it means you're leaving him with or her with a shaitan. Not the cell phone itself. I'm not referring to cell phone itself, but shaitan knows our weakness, and this cell phone is a gateway to so many evil, including
even I've curated my social media because the algorithm learns what you want to, what you like, so to keep you on the device longer, or the social media.
What do you mean you created your own social media? What does that mean?
No, I curated.
Oh, you curated. Okay.
So
okay. I thought you have your own Facebook.
When I've like when I open social, especially Instagram or whatnot, and something I don't like comes up, or a photo of a naked guy or girl or whatnot, I automatically say I don't want to see this anymore, or I block them. And after about a week of doing this, nothing. I like and follow channels that are good Islamic channels, something Quran, a sheikh, whatnot, and
that becomes the
within
norm
a few
on your
days,
social media pages.
nothing is ever shown that it is haram. But even then, there's ads. There's when you go to search and whatnot, sometimes things pop up, and that used to be the trigger for me to go to these other sites. So even if your child has no intention, as you said,
Mm,
when you're by yourself under the blanket,
mm.
you might just be scrolling TikTok and subhanallah, an ad comes up, bang, that triggers you, and
And
you're off
that's
to the
the hook
races.
for
That's the hook
years.
for it. Yeah.
May Allah protect us all. So here you go, my brothers and sisters. Parental involvement is very, very essential, and a conversation with your child, even if that child is as young as 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Don't ever think that he is young. There are a big number of people in that age already addicted, drowned with their addiction to pornography at that very young age. I was talking to my wife actually the other day. We're planning a video together actually, and the issue of pornography came up, and she said, "Do you remember the cyber cafe that we lived nearby in the Philippines?" And it hits me because as soon as she said that, I remember that I used to go and use the internet cafe. We didn't have a computer in my parents-in-law then, so I would go there, check my emails and all that. And as I walk through the computers, going to any empty one to use, you will find those little kids watching pornography in a public internet cafe. So don't
Wow.
ever think that your child is young and doesn't know. That's, maybe our generation was very innocent. Today, with the advancement of social media
Yeah.
and these filthy websites, 2 clicks away.
That's it.
So now let's get into the strategies that got you off that hook, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Uh, Maybe top 5 strategies that you have applied that worked best for you.
Okay. I think from the lowest
The
that
lowest.
work is you have to learn how to recognize a trigger or even something that might be a trigger, or even recognize the pattern in your brain and the thoughts starting to come and like you're kind of sitting at the top of that slope about to go
Okay.
down.
Which
And
usually
I
addicts are
usually
experienced at. Yes.
yeah,
Do
it's because you've done it so many times. When you try to become aware of it, you can very quickly figure it out.
Mm,
But once you do recognize these patterns and you can start to recognize the start of the downfall with these triggers or this addiction, I usually say Alhamdulillah or A'udhu Billah Minash Shaitanir Rajim, anything dhikr of
mm.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that will work a lot of the time if I catch it at the very beginning. And it
Okay.
has to be at the very beginning because you leave it even a minute longer than that and you're like, oh, I want to
Before you
see
know it.
how this goes, how far, like don't worry about it, don't touch it, don't try it. Just you recognize it, say do that. If you're listening to something that triggered you, stop listening to it.
Mm.
Things like that. And that usually curbs those very initial
And can you give me
parts of it.
example on for example, what could trigger people as a gateway to pornography, like in our current media lifestyle?
Sheikh, it's anything. I've, subhanallah, it's nothing against the people that make these videos, but
Or against them,
even
doesn't matter.
it's they're talking about halal marriage and whatnot and the responsibilities of wife and husband and
Mm,
things. And I'm a very visual person, so my imagination goes. And there's the halal side of that, but also if you let it go for too long, it's I'm off.
mm,
And then even things as little as sometimes there's been triggers where I don't even think of it that way, where like I've gone to a mall or I'm driving by and I have to look because I'm driving and I just see someone on the road who's not
mm.
wearing a
And
proper dress, and
that's why Allah
sometimes, Sheikh,
subhanahu wa ta'ala.
I don't even think of it.
Oh,
But then
that's the most
I get
dangerous one.
home, yeah. But then I get home and I remember that image in my head, and I'm like,
Mm.
oh wait, no, this is. There's so many
Now,
things.
do you know the value of the lowering the gaze
Yeah.
that we're talking about? So,
Oh,
so you see, why do you
alhamdulillah.
have to? Some people say, brother, but I talk to my classmate. I cannot just, look in the floor or looking. It's disrespectful. It's disrespectful. Maybe it may appear disrespectful to people, but by the time you go home, as you said, what you have stared at
Yeah.
will be stored in your brain,
Oh,
and as a result, it
100%,
becomes a trigger.
100%.
So lowering the gaze
And
is essential.
even with those things, Yani, it's you think it would be it is if the person you're talking to thinks it is disrespectful, explain to them that it's not out of disrespect or disgust for you as a woman. It's out of respect and uh,
To be honest, it's a protection for
yeah,
myself, man. I don't
yeah,
care.
it is. But like,
So,
if you're scared of that happening
it
with
can be
somebody,
explained. It
it
can be
can be
explained.
explained.
But
But
look,
yeah,
there are many things that non-Muslim community and other groups they do at will
of course.
without having the need to explain anything to
Yeah,
anyone. And we don't go and question them, why do you do this? Why do you do that? So if I want to lower my gaze to respect myself before anyone else and to respect my religion and the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before I don't have to go and explain myself. I
of
could
course
explain
not.
to myself to people that maybe matters, but not everyone I am entitled to go and explain. By the way, I'm lowering the gaze out of
La
respect.
la la. Well, when I interact with people like at work and whatnot, and there's women who work in the office and things, and I'll see them and they're walking by, and I'll just keep my head down, and if they say hi or whatnot, I'll be like, hello, nice, good morning,
So let us summarize tip number one. This is the lowest, huh? This is the
and
lowest. Imagine the fight is big. Look, unless you intensify your battle against pornography, there is no way out. Is
no,
that correct?
that's correct.
So, number one, you have to identify your triggers. You have to know what usually leads you to relapses.
Yeah.
And you have to act or react to those triggers immediately by avoiding, of course,
Yes.
the behavior as soon as you recognize them. As soon as you recognize that the cycle is about to take toll on you again,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to react to afkar, to salah, to perhaps other
Yeah.
activities that can save you from that relapse.
Mm-hmm.
Second,
I think the second one, I'm trying to order them in my head, Sheikh.
okay, because I put him in the
It's on
corner.
the spot, yeah.
We haven't
Um,
prepared
I
anything.
think one that did work as well, especially once I'm past that point of like that initial part of that the trigger, especially if I'm at home as well. Sometimes being outside or being in a different environment, I can let the trigger just go and it will just run and yeah, it's like okay, I can't do anything here, and khalas, and then my brain will either just keep going and then it will taper off and go away, or it'll just go away straight away once I recognize that I'm in a situation that I can't get out of to go do something like that.
So it will fade away on
It'll
its own.
just fade
And
away.
this is something very interesting because that tells us that sometimes we actually can control those
Of course.
intense
But it does depend on your
addictive
environment
behavior. Yeah.
because in the same moment when I've been at home and I've been on my own computer, sometimes I get bored of what I'm working on or I get stressed or I can't answer a question if I'm studying, and that will start to trigger because I'm bored, I'm looking for something to do, and then the trigger happens, and then
And because you're at
if
home
I
alone,
yeah I'm alone, and then if I don't recognize the initial start of it, but I recognize it like a bit after that, I get up and I walk. I just get up and get out of that environment, walk away from the place where you're gonna where it usually happens, or like that comfortable environment. And for me, my area is pretty secluded and pretty peaceful, so there's a lot of trees around as well. It's not in the middle of
mashallah.
the city, so I just get up and I just walk.
So recognizing the triggers and also recognizing the environment. If the environments
Uh-huh.
are helpful
Yeah.
for your sobriety or against it or could lead you to relapses. So if the environments are not conducive to sobriety, then you have to leave. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Or even if you're bored and then you're in the environment that you used to commit this thing in, that's also not very
So boredom is something.
boredom is a massive one for me. I if my mind isn't running, I'm usually bored. So this is making me think. So I'm like, I'm excited. I'm thinking, but then sometimes I'm just, especially at home, if I'm even watching a video or something like that, sometimes I'll just get in the middle of it. I'm no longer interested. If I don't find something to be interested in, especially at the very beginning, now I just get up and do something else or find something else interesting to do on my computer. It will trigger me to go find that dopamine rush, find that rush, that excitement. So instead of it being the thing I'm trying to avoid, I just get up and I walk away.
MashaAllah.
And then when I
And
come back, it's
that's why the Prophet ﷺ said that there are things that we often neglect: health and free time.
yes,
So unless you seize the opportunity of being healthy by doing that which is necessary, consuming your health in the service of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, using
yes,
those moments, those healthy moments before it's too late. If you're struck with some, may Allah protect us and cure all our sick, Ya Rab, I mean, if you're struck by any illness, you would feel what I'm saying. You know, you would realize the importance of having a healthy body. But the Prophet ﷺ said that sometimes we neglect those two things.
Yeah.
Our health, because pornography also attack your health.
I've gone through it.
Your mental health, your physical health. We'll talk about that in a
Yeah.
minute. But the second is free time. As soon as you have free time, be careful. Shaitan is there and your addiction is there. Will fill the gap.
It's waiting.
They will
Yeah.
fill the gap. So as soon as you feel that you're bored, you have nothing to do, your advice is
Just
run away.
run away. If you're bored and you can't find something else to do in that moment, go for a walk. That's healthy as well. If you really cannot, don't sit there and wait, especially when you're beginning.
And don't always run after easy fixes.
No.
And don't say, but I don't like walking. Nobody cares, by the way. Like, you don't like it, but this is the medicine. This is the remedy, right?
Of course.
Third.
Third.
So we say identify triggers, identify environments, and whether it's conducive to sobriety, well and fine, you will not relapse. But if it is not, or if you're bored, then you have to leave. The third one would be, third advice to give to people. Some of the strategies that you have applied.
For myself, Sheikh, I think it was, well, I think a big one was actually reintroducing myself to the masjid and taking on more responsibility than I...
So spiritual growth.
Spiritual growth, yeah. I think we went through a strategy where you have like different categories of things,
circles of people and so on.
Things you need to focus on as well, and some of it's physical health, the spiritual, and there's a couple of others I forget. Sheikh. Intellectual, yeah. But a big one for me was when I started reintroducing myself into the Masjid as-Salam here as well. Being
committed, yeah.
And being committed, and then and taking on more responsibility with them, getting to know the brothers there. So now I'm going to the Masjid at least 3 times a week in the afternoon. So that also, when I'm not there, it's like, okay, I either have something to do afterwards or not, or I need to be ready for next Wednesday or whatever it is. So it's just, one, I'm removing myself from an environment. I'm not bored. I'm around people, that brothers and sisters who are not sisters, but around brothers in the masjid who are.
So just remember, my brothers, what Brother Ibrahim is telling us is easier said than done. It was never that easy.
No.
Like, it seems like he's saying, you go away and run away and go to the masjid. That wasn't as easy as it is narrated, but it is doable.
It is.
When you persist, when you insist, when you push your limits to the max, it's gonna get done.
Yeah, of course.
Give us 2 more points, inshallah, the ultimate ones, the ones that you will never forget, that you appreciate the most, that really contributed to your sobriety.
My next one is my ultimate one was before I even met you, Sheikh. But I'll get to that.
What was that? Okay.
My fourth one is probably when I started with you, Sheikh. It was I have someone to answer to. Because I told you, accountability, when I reached out to you and things, especially the first few weeks, it was like, if nothing worked, all the strategies I had or strategies I was given by you to practice or to use, it didn't work. The one thing that kept me going was, I have to talk to Sheikh Wa'il
next week and report. And I'm the most annoying coach. I will hold you accountable. I will cancel sessions. I will get in.
It's just having that accountability that kept me, alhamdulillah, that kept me going.
Alhamdulillah.
There was a few times it was just like, there's nothing that's working, but then I'm like, I just go through what's going to happen when I meet with you on that day next week.
Alhamdulillah.
And that's all. It's like, I'm not.
Because you said earlier that you can't fight that battle by yourself.
You can't.
It's not
going to happen. As I said, that was the biggest thing that helped initially.
Alhamdulillah.
And
what is the thing that you said before meeting me? What was
Sheikh,
that?
Before, for me, in the months leading up to before I messaged you, Sheikh, I pretty much dragged myself into the ground with, like, I was like, how badly does this addiction actually affect me? So I just went through all the like my situation when I wake up, if I wake up for Fajr or not sometimes, is it because I'm not sleeping enough? No. So then what is it? Oh, it's probably because of this dopamine filled brain that's just coming down off these multiple highs every day or whatnot. And I just kept making these associations and I kept trying to resist myself, which was just bringing me in. There was this perpetual momentum into the ground. And alhamdulillah, for me, when for myself in my own life, when I've had the most amount of change happen, it's when I hit that real rock bottom and I just go 180 degrees and go straight as fast as I can in the other direction.
Allah.
And so I had that momentum built up, this desperation, I put it, this real desperation and need to change.
Running to the opposite direction.
Running away.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah,
And I remember we went through the Surah Yusuf, and how Yusuf alayhi salam went to the other direction, literally.
Yeah.
Physically and literally, when the wife of Al-Aziz was seducing him and inviting him to zina, walayadu billah, he ran to the opposite direction. In a room that was locked from all directions.
Yes.
Like, think about it. But the answer is, I don't care. If the sin is committed here, I am on the opposite side. And that's where you actually exited.
That was my, that was the biggest proponent, because I exhausted all my excuses outside of help. I exhausted everything, but I made sure it happened all at once, not over a period of time. And so I just kept like, I need to change. This needs to work. Like, I can't lose weight because of the shame I have about this addiction. I can't just stick to social interactions or meetings, or I keep falling asleep or sleeping through and missing work or whatever it may be. And I just kept making all, true or not as well, associations in my mind about
seeing all the negative consequences and
so
relating them
like
to...
I've got this addiction and there's all these negative consequences that are true, and this is like they're attached.
They are all related.
Sometimes it was even little things like I forgot to call someone back.
Because I'm addicted.
I still don't call people back now. I'm not, but I just like, oh, it's because I'm addicted.
So you related everything negative to
related,
addiction.
negative or not, whether it was actually affected or not, I related everything to the addiction. So this is one thing in my life that is making everything bad.
And wallahi, this is true. Whether you associated or not, wallahi, this is true.
Yes.
Pornography will strip you of everything beautiful in your life. Whether you're a child, a teenager, an adult, a married couple, a religious person, man, woman, niqabi, hijabi, bearded, it doesn't really discriminate this evil. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you protected. Ameen. Okay, one ultimate advice now to people who are listening and still thinking whether to seek help, reach out to people who are expert in this to get rid of this addiction. What would be your sincere advice to them, inshallah, before we end our meeting?
I think it's hard, Sheikh. For me, I reached out to you. So reach out to someone professional.
And it took you how long to reach me? To reach out to me?
I think from the beginning of my associations with stuff, it took about 6 months.
Wow.
I think it was about 3 to 6 months, I think it was, that I just I was really determined to try and change, and I kept drilling myself into the ground. And then I remembered watching your videos about this and whatnot, and I was like, khalas, this needs to change.
Because it's never going to happen
And
by myself.
I've exhausted all options by myself, and khalas, I reached out to you.
So there are really people who are watching us today, Brother Ibrahim, who are really in your position years back. Like, they are still struggling, they are still figuring out what to do. So what is really the shortcut advice that you give them to save the more years to come in their lives, wasting it in this?
I think reach out to someone the bottom line, you have to talk to someone. Don't talk to someone that's a friend, because they might be going through the same thing, but they also don't know how to help you. Reach out to an adult, a family member, someone who you really trust or think you can trust with this. And if that's not the case, if you can't find anyone like that, like I couldn't, go to your sheikh, go to someone in the masjid, find somebody that you can initially start the conversation with, and they can help you with your parents and like explaining to them this addiction and whatnot. And if you are a bit older as well, and you are coming to the realization of this addiction or wanting to change it, reach out to someone like yourself, Sheikh. Someone who is in this industry who
Or
can
someone
really
like
help
him,
you.
because he's now
Or
helping people,
me, خلاص,
mashallah. No,
inshallah.
the point is,
Yeah.
really, this thing cannot be defeated
No.
by the addict himself or herself.
And also, don't delay. If
Don't.
you're 12, if you're 10,
Oh.
trust me, I've been there. Don't
Just be
think you can
wise.
get
Be
rid of it
wise
by
in
yourself.
choosing the right person. Like, don't
Exactly.
just go and share with anyone that you know.
No.
Be careful. Share with someone that you trust.
I guess another thing to be aware of was when I was, especially growing up, I always had a problem with food and being overweight and things like that. And I now realize that that was a physical display of my shame and disappointment in my porn addiction. And it was only in the 6 months that I was struggling with it. Well, before I met you, before I talked to you, Sheikh, where I was like, this is this food addiction is because of this porn addiction, and that's the association I had. But then after I've recovered from this addiction, alhamdulillah, and now I'm dealing with food addiction by itself. They call it comorbidity if you're going into mental health or whatnot. But now I'm like, oh, I no longer have the shame about this addiction, this pornography addiction. But now I'm like, okay, why can't I stop eating the things that are
Junky
make me
stuff,
comfort and the junk food and the sugar? But so then it's like, okay, hang on, I've now realized that I had a comorbidity where I was relying on food to comfort me emotionally, and now that it's now become its own thing. So now I've gotten rid of one. It's so you can really, really mess up your health.
But you got rid of the hard one, Sheikh. You
The
got
hard
one
one,
of
of
the
course.
worst ones. So I think,
Alhamdulillah, all the recovery tips as well help with the
alhamdulillah.
food.
But I think it's way easier for you to get rid of your food addiction. If it is already confirmed, then anything else that you've done, like what you did already is Matthew Perry, that actor who passed away, he called his addiction that monkey on my shoulder. I couldn't get that monkey off my shoulder, but it's a beautiful expression, because this is how it feels when you're addicted. It's like something just irritating you.
Exactly.
So you got rid of that monkey, alhamdulillah, and the food
Now the
addiction.
second monkey
we
needs to
gotta
come
we gotta
off.
work on it, inshallah. But by the way, like, even though you are struggling with food and all that, but you go for exercise. You told me regularly
Of
you
course.
exercise.
I still exercise.
You
I
play
still
sport
do
or
it.
something like
Yeah.
that? Like you hit people in the face?
No, not in the
Kicking?
face, alhamdulillah. But I do a martial art, and
Allahu Akbar, look at this.
I walk. I'm physically active. I'm not overweight and a couch potato, as they say. But it's still just been a big part of my life as well since I was very young, and maybe it was I had this addiction before I had the other one, but then they mold together and you don't know what separates them. And now I've separated it initially, but it's just like, you don't think that if you have multiple addictions to different things, or you have a social media addiction even, that you get rid of the deep, shameful, like the main reason you've gone to this other thing for that emotional comfort or whatnot,
I understand.
that you will be able to get rid of the big crux of the issue and get rid of the other one as well.
I'm dealing with a lot of cases where people will give up the porn, but they will jump on gaming, or sometimes even drugs, and that's the hardest part. May Allah protect us all. Brother Ibrahim, Allah, it was an honor
Thank you,
to
Sheikh.
have you on Story Podcast. Jazakallah khairan for accepting the invitation. Jazakallah khairan for showing bravery to come to the light and talk to us about something that is known in our community as a taboo, something that we have on a prevalent scale, yet it's always brushed under the carpet. Yet you were courageous enough to come and say, hey, I was in there, and alhamdulillah, now I'm free. and this is how I did it, and you too can do the same. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for that. Jazakumullah khair, my brothers and sisters. Brother Ibrahim will be available soon. I don't know when will he be available, his services, and if you guys want to reach him out, find him somewhere. I don't know.
Fine.
We
Yeah,
didn't
خلاص,
plan
yeah.
anything about if that video is going to be posted soon, inshallah ta'ala. Perhaps by then, Brother Ibrahim will leave his contacts where we will, inshallah ta'ala, place it in the description below that video.
Inshallah.
Any final word, Brother Ibrahim? You want to look at this beautiful camera there and say something
خلاص, alhamdulillah. Please reach out.
and have hope?
Have hope. There's
Yes.
people in this community, as Muslims, whether you're in the west or the east or the north or the south.
Wow.
It affects everybody. It will only get worse in the years to come. So please reach out. Reach out to the sheikh, someone you know, and
I don't have enough spaces in my plate.
لا. If you reach out to the sheikh, he'll refer you to me. But
No,
خلاص,
barakallah feekum. Jazakumullah
alhamdulillah.
khairan, guys. Stay
Yeah.
safe, stay away from this evil. This is the one thing that can snatch your iman away. And iman is the most valuable thing that Allah had given us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. This day I have perfected your religion for you, completed my favor upon you, and chosen Islam to be your religion. This is the choice of Allah, the most pure way of life Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intended for us. So don't ruin it, don't tarnish it by this filth. May Allah protect us all. Jazakumullah khairan. That's about it.
Yeah.
Ibrahim, barakallah feek.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam.